The low hum of my Juki sewing machine was the soundtrack to my life. For me, Natalie, a 42-year-old seamstress, that sound wasn't noise. It was the rhythm of creation, the whisper of dreams taking shape under my fingers. My little shop, Natalie's Stitches, wasn't just a business. It was my sanctuary, a world filled with bolts of silk, cascades of lace, and the soft glow of pincushions bristling with potential. And for the past 7 months, all that potential, all that love had been funneled into one single monumental project. My daughter Zoe's graduation dress. Zoe was my world. At 18, she was on the cusp of everything beautiful and terrifying about adulthood. She had my passion for art, but expressed it with paintbrushes and charcoal, her canvases telling stories I could only dream of stitching. Seeing her walk across that graduation stage was going to be more than a milestone. It was a testament to every late night, every sacrifice, every quiet moment of worry and pride that defined my motherhood. This dress had to be perfect. It wasn't just a garment. It was a hug made of fabric, a whisper of, "I'm so proud of you," woven into every seam. I chose an ivory chiffon, as delicate as a whisper that caught the light like morning mist. The design was intricate, with hand-stitched seed pearls tracing patterns like constellations across the bodice, and a skirt that flowed like liquid moonlight. Every evening after the last customer left, I'd lock the door, put on a playlist of Zoe's favorite indie bands, and lose myself in the work. I remembered the day she was born, a tiny, fierce thing with a grip that belied her size. I remembered her first day of school, her small hands sweating in mine. I stitched these memories into the lining, a secret tapestry of our life together. The dress became a living thing, breathing with the force of my love for her. The day before graduation, the dress was finally complete. I hung it on the custom mannequin in the center of the shop, its ivory glow a beacon of accomplishment. It was, without a doubt, the finest thing I had ever made. I stood back, my heart swelling with a painful, beautiful H. I couldn't wait to see Zoo's face. That evening, my husband, Mark, came by the shop to walk home with me. He admired the dress, of course, in that slightly distracted way he had. "Looks great, Nat. Really fantastic work." I smiled, though a familiar flicker of disappointment went through me. "It's for Zoe," I reminded him gently. "It's her graduation gift." I know. She's gonna love it." He kissed my cheek, ready to go. "My mom is coming over for dinner." My smile tightened. Nah, my mother-in-law, the one discordant note in the symphony of my life. Just that afternoon, she had made one of her surprise visits to the shop. She never bought anything. She just observed. She'd walked in, a brittle smile plastered on her face, her eyes scanning the room like a hawk looking for prey. "Natalie, darling," she'd cooed, her voice thin and sharp. "Still playing with your little threads and needles?" "Hello, Na," I replied, my voice even. Her eyes had landed on the graduation dress. She circled it slowly, her fingers twitching as if wanting to touch it, to taint it. "For Zoe, I presume." "Yes, for her graduation tomorrow." "Ivory," she mused, a strange glint in her eyes. "A bit bridal, don't you think? For a girl like Zoe?" "A girl like Zoe." The unspoken words hung in the air between Yuso, my son's stepdaughter. The girl who isn't my blood. The girl who isn't good enough. I refused to take the bait. "I think it's perfect for her," I said, my tone leaving no room for argument. She had just hummed a low, dismissive sound and given the dress one last, lingering look before turning to leave. "Well, you do have a key. Mark might need to pick something up for him later," she'd said airily. A statement that wasn't a question. It was a reminder that she had access, that she could cross boundaries whenever she pleased. A cold knot of dread formed in my stomach, then a feeling I had learned never to ignore. The next morning, the morning of Zoe's graduation, I woke up with that same sense of dread clinging to me like a shroud. I told myself I was being paranoid. I left the house early, wanting to carefully pack the dress in its garment bag and bring it home for Zoe to try on one last time. I unlocked the shop, the familiar jingle of the bell on the door sounding oddly ominous in the quiet morning. The air was still, but something felt wrong. My eyes shot to the center of the room, to the mannequin. And then my world stopped. It was a scene of pure violation. The dress, my beautiful, perfect dress, was destroyed. It wasn't a tear or a snag. It was a vicious, hateful act of destruction. The delicate chiffon skirt was shredded, hanging in ragged strips. The bodice had been slashed diagonally, the tiny pearls ripped away, scattering across the floor like frozen tears. A dark, oily substance, was it motor oil, was smeared across the pristine ivory fabric, a final, ugly desecration. For a long moment, I couldn't breathe. A sound, guttural sob, tore from my throat. It felt like I was looking at a physical representation of my own heart, ripped and defiled. 7 months of love, a lifetime of memories. Slaughtered. My mind, numb with shock, replayed yesterday's scene. Na's cold eyes, her twitching fingers, her veiled, venomous words. A girl like Zoe, and the casual, chilling mention of the key. There was no doubt. None. This was her work. It was the culmination of years of quiet, insidious cruelty. Na had never accepted Zoe. From the moment Mark and I married when Zoe was 6, Na had treated her like an inconvenient, unwelcome ghost in our family. It was never overt enough for Mark to see it for what it was. It was 1,000 tiny cuts. Forgetting was allergic to peanuts at a family picnic. Accidentally donating Zoe's favorite childhood teddy bear to charity. The time she'd tripped. While carrying a can of turpentine in Zor's art studio, the resulting spill ruining the portfolio Zoe had painstakingly prepared for her college applications. Each time I had confronted her, and each time she'd feigned wide innocence, and each time Mark would step in, ever the peacemaker. Mom's just clumsy, Nat. You know how she is. She doesn't mean anything by it. Can't we just let it go for the sake of peace? He wasn't malicious, my Mark. He was just blind. Blinded by a lifetime of making excuses for a woman who was a master of plausible deniability. This time was different. This wasn't a clumsy accident. This was a declaration of war. My first instinct was to call the police, to scream in rage and demand justice, but I knew exactly how it would play out. Na would deny everything, shedding crocodile tears and accusing me of being a hysterical, overprotective mother. Mark would be caught in the middle, begging for calm, and our family would fracture in a way that might never heal. Zoe would be left with the trauma, and Na would walk away, triumphant in her weakness. No, I wouldn't give her the satisfaction. My grief, hot and raw, began to cool, crystallizing into something hard and sharp. A cold. Calculated resolve settled over me. She wanted to destroy my daughter's happiness on one of the most important days of her life. She wanted to leave a scar, but Na had underestimated me. She saw me as a quiet, unassuming woman who played with threads. She had forgotten that threads, when woven together, can create something unbreakable. And that needles can be weapons. After the turpentine incident last year, a seed of grim foresight had been planted in my mind. I'd seen the look of triumph in Na's eyes, even as she was dabbing at the mess with a paper towel, clucking about her silly old self. I knew then that she would escalate. I knew she would target something Zoe loved, something I had made to hurt us both at once. So I had started a secret project, an insurance policy. With trembling hands, I walked to the back of the shop, to the antique wardrobe where I stored my most precious fabrics. I unlocked a false panel at the bottom, one I had built myself. And there, nestled in layers of acid-free tissue paper, was my secret. It was another dress. This one was the polar opposite of the first. Where the ivory dress was ethereal and delicate, this one was bold and magnificent. It was crafted from a heavy, lustrous silk in the deepest shade of emerald green, the color of resilience, of ancient forests and precious jewels. It had a simple, elegant silhouette that I knew would make Zoe look like royalty, with long, fitted sleeves and a neckline that swept gracefully off the shoulders. I had worked on it in stolen moments, late at night when the house was asleep, my Juki humming a song of defiance. I had poured a different kind of love into this dress. Not the gentle, nostalgic love of the ivory one, but a fierce, protective warrior's love. It was a dress that said, "You cannot break us." I carried it out to the main room, past the heartbreaking wreckage of the first dress, and hung it on the now empty mannequin. In the morning light, the emerald silk seemed to drink in the sun, glowing with an inner fire. It was a beacon of hope in the midst of the carnage. Now, for the hardest part, telling Zoe. She came into the shop an hour later, her face bright with excitement, a coffee thermos in her hand for me. "Mom, are you ready to?" She stopped dead, her eyes fixing on the tattered remains of the ivory dress. The thermos slipped from her fingers, clattering to the floor and spilling coffee in a dark, spreading pool. Her face crumpled, the joy instantly replaced by a look of such profound devastation that it physically hurt me to see. "Oh, Mom," she whispered, her voice breaking. "The dress, what happened?" I rushed to her, wrapping my arms around her as sobs began to shake her small frame. I let her cry, her tears soaking the shoulder of my blouse. I held her tight, murmuring soothing words, my own anger a hard, protective shell around my grief. "Who would do this?" she cried, pulling back to look at me, her eyes searching my face. Why? I looked at her, my smart, beautiful daughter, and I saw the dawning realization in her eyes. She knew. She had endured Na's petty cruelties her whole life. She knew who was capable of this level of hatred. "It doesn't matter who did it, sweetie," I said, my voice firm, pulling her focus to me. "What matters is that we don't let them win. What matters is that you are going to walk across that stage today looking more beautiful and powerful than you have ever looked in your life." I took her hand and led her to the mannequin holding the emerald dress. Her sobbing stopped, replaced by a sharp, stunned gasp. She stared at the gown, her eyes wide with disbelief. She reached out a tentative hand and touched the rich, cool silk. "Mum Wang Hao," she whispered. "I made it a while ago," I said simply, "as a backup. Just in case." The look on her face was something I will treasure for the rest of my life. It was a mixture of awe, confusion, and a deep, dawning understanding of the depths of my love for her. The tears that welled up in her eyes now were not tears of sorrow, but tears of gratitude. "You knew," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "You knew she might do something. I hoped I was wrong." I replied, my voice catching, "But I wasn't going to let your day be ruined. Nothing and no will ever ruin your day as long as I'm here. Now, let's get you into this dress. We have a graduation to get to." As Zoo slipped into the emerald gown, it was like watching a transformation. The dress fit her as if it were spun from her own skin. The deep green brought out the fire in her red hair and the sparkle in her tear-washed eyes. She stood taller, her shoulders back, no longer a heartbroken girl, but a queen surveying her domain. She looked strong, unbreakable. Back at the house, Mark saw the dress and his jaw dropped. "Wow, Zoe, That's not the dress I saw yesterday. It's stunning, but what happened to the white one? I met his gaze in the hallway mirror, my eyes as cold and hard as steel. Ask your mother, Mark, I said quietly. She was the last one to see it. Before he could respond, Zoe walked up to him, her expression serious. Dad, she said, using the name she had gifted him when she was 10. It always got his attention. Grandma Na doesn't like me very much, does she? Mark looked flustered. What? Of course she does, honey. She's just, set in her ways. No, Zoe said, her voice steady and clear, free of anger, just stating a fact. She spilled turpentine on my art portfolio last year. She lost the silver locket you gave me for my 16th birthday. She always makes comments of my art, about my friends, about me not being your real family. I've never said anything because I didn't want to cause trouble. But I think she destroyed my other dress, the one Mom spent months making for me. I watched Mark's face as he listened to his stepdaughter list years of carefully curated cruelties. For the first time, I saw a flicker of doubt, a crack in the wall of denial he had so carefully constructed around his mother. He looked from Zoo's earnest, pained face to my unyielding one, and the cheerful, oblivious morning mood evaporated, replaced by a heavy, uncertain silence. The graduation ceremony was held in the university's grand auditorium. We found our seats, and soon after, Na and my father-in-law, George, arrived. Na was preening, dressed in a gaudy floral dress, a triumphant smirk playing on her lips. She was scanning the crowd of graduates, no doubt looking for Zoe, expecting to find her in a hastily bought, ill-fitting dress, her day ruined. Then she saw us. Her eyes found me first, then Mark's stormy face. And then she saw Zoo walking in the procession of students. Na's smile froze and then vanished. Her face went slack with shock, her eyes widening in disbelief as she took in the sight of Zoe. Zoe, not in ruined ivory, but in glorious, defiant emerald green. She looked like a jewel, radiant and confident, holding her head high. Na's gaze shot to me, her eyes filled with a furious, confused hatred. I simply met her stare and gave her a slow, deliberate smile. In that moment, she knew that I knew. And she knew she had failed. The ceremony was a blur until it was time for the valedictorian speech. And it was Zoe, my brilliant, resilient daughter. She stepped up to the podium, the emerald dress shimmering under the stage lights. She took a deep breath and began to speak. She didn't mention the dress. She didn't mention her grandmother. She didn't have to. Good afternoon, everyone. She began, her voice clear and strong. We are taught that success is a straight line, a path you follow from A to B. But I've learned that's not true. Life is messy. And sometimes people will try to make it messier. There will be people who, for reasons we may never understand, will try to tear down what you build. They will try to rip your canvases, spill paint on your dreams, and try to convince you that you are not worthy of the beautiful things you create. I saw Mark flinch beside me. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Na's face pale, her knuckles white, as she gripped the armrest. They will do this because your light shines on their own darkness. Zoe continued, her gaze sweeping across the audience. But here is the secret they don't want you to know. You are not defined by the acts of those who try to harm you. You are defined by how you choose to respond. You can let them turn your masterpiece into rags. Or you can take those rags, pick up a new color, a bolder, stronger color, and create something even more beautiful in its place. Your resilience is your greatest creation. Don't let anyone ever take that away from you. When she finished, the auditorium erupted in applause. I was crying, silent tears of overwhelming pride and love streaming down my face. Beside me, Mark was crying too, but his were tears of shame and regret. He finally understood. He finally saw his mother for who she truly was. The confrontation happened back at our house. The moment we walked in the door, Mark turned to his mother. His voice was low, trembling with a rage I had never heard from him before. "Did you do it?" he asked, his voice shaking. "Did you destroy Zoe's dress?" Na immediately started her usual routine. Mark, "Honey, I don't know what you're talking about. That girl is turning you against me." "She's the one! Enough!" Mark roared, and Na flinched back as if struck. No more lies. That was my cue. I walked to my study and came back with a simple, leather-bound notebook. I had started it the year after we got married. I opened it on the coffee table. "What's this?" George, my father-in-law, asked, looking confused. "It's a record," I said calmly, "of every single act of clumsiness and forgetfulness Na has committed against my daughter for the past 12 years. I began to read, my voice steady and clear. October 5th, 2013, Na accidentally leaves the gate open and Zoo's new puppy runs out and gets lost for 2 days. May 2016, Na serves a birthday cake with walnuts. Despite being reminded 3 times of Zora's allergy, Zoe has to be taken to the emergency room. December 15th, 2019, the antique teak music box I gave for Christmas of a family heirloom from my grandmother disappears from her room after Na's visit. August 11th, 24, the turpentine incident with the art portfolio. I have a receipt for the professional cleaner who confirmed the spill was deliberate and concentrated. And yesterday, August 25th, the destruction of a $700 dress. I have security camera footage from the shop across the street showing you entering my store at 9:15 p.m. and leaving at 9:28 p.m. The police report for the vandalism will be filed tomorrow morning using that footage. The room was utterly silent. Na's face had turned a pasty, mottled gray. George looked at his wife with horror and dawning comprehension. He had been blind too, but his blindness was shattering before his very eyes. Mark walked over to his mother, his face a mask of cold fury. He held out his hand. "Give me your key," he said, his voice dangerously quiet, "to my house and to Natalie's shop." Now, sobbing, she fumbled in her purse and dropped the keys into his palm. "You are not welcome in this house. Again." Mark said, his voice breaking with the pain of a lifetime of betrayal. "You are not welcome near my wife or my daughter. Not until you get help. Not until you understand what you have done." Na tried to appeal to George, but he just shook his head, a look of profound disappointment on his face. "I'm taking you home, Na," he said, his voice heavy. "We have a lot to talk about." A few days later, Na posted a long, rambling apology on social media, announcing she was stepping back from her community activities to reflect and heal. It was a performance, and I knew it. But it didn't matter. I had the evidence. I had the power now. If she ever stepped out of line again, I would burn her carefully constructed world to the ground. The final, most heartbreaking piece of the puzzle came a week later. George called me. His voice was tired, defeated. He had been cleaning out their attic, preparing to move into a separate apartment, when he found a locked hat box tucked away in a corner. He pried it open. Inside, he told me, was a bizarre and chilling collection of trophies. Zoe's lost silver locket. The tiny, broken porcelain ballerina from her music box. A lock of her red hair snipped from a doll. And a single, pristine pearl ripped from the bodice of the ivory dress. It was a dragon's hoard of stolen joy and petty triumphs. That was the final straw for George. He told me his lawyer had officially filed the divorce papers that morning. That evening, Zoe and I sat in the quiet of the shop. The emerald dress was back on its mannequin, a silent guardian in the center of the room. It was more than a dress. It was a symbol. It was proof that we could take the ugliest, most hateful act and spin it into something beautiful and strong. Na had tried to dress my daughter in sorrow and shame, but instead, Zoe had worn resilience. She had worn strength. She had worn the fierce, unyielding love of her mother. And in that glorious emerald green, she had shown the whole world that we would not be broken. We would only become more vibrant.